All right, this is our last video on World War One, and we're just talking about kind of how the end of the war, even though it was very short, for all practical purposes, a year and a half, a little over that, it really changed the not just America, but changed the entire world because this is our first world war and world conflict. And what do you do after you have something like this? How do you make things right? How do you make things go back to the way they were? Well, the fact of the matter is you can't. Everybody knows that the alliance system was one of the main causes for this, and I'm not going to be friends with this guy over here, and keeps doing this. And then you got the breakup of all these countries, and this country no longer really works because it's been torn to shreds. So those are the types of things that happen. Now, one of the things that comes about during this time is you've got President Wilson coming and trying to say, hey, let's have a world group, the League of Nations, the group that works together. And a lot of the people that were in America went, nope, time out. Nope, we're not going to do it. And here's why. We don't want another country telling us as America what we can and cannot do. Because we kind of do the same thing to them, but hey, we were bigger guns, right? And so the bottom line is we say, no, we're not going to be part of the League of Nations. If we had, things might have been a little different. I don't know. I'm not sure if I can give a great reason why they would have been, but it could have been a possibility. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the peace agreement, Wilson wanted this idea of called a peace without victory. He argued that Europe would only remain peaceful by not forcing unreasonable terms against the losers of the war. Makes sense. He had what was called the 14 points, all right, and these were his plan for the future world peace. And some of those points were no secret treaties, no freedom of the seas, lower or abolish tariffs, free trade. Yeah, all good stuff. But the bottom line is, people went, no, they're still very nationalistic, very much so. We're going to do what we want to do, and even America, right? Even America said, no, we're not going to do this. So we've got this treaty. Well, the Treaty of Versailles comes together and establishes 9 new nations. So the Ottoman Empire, that's Turkey area. There were carved out areas that gave them the France, Britain as temporary colonies until ready for independence. That's funny right there because whether or not they feel they're ready for independence, it's kind of like your parents saying, you're 18 years old and you're like, I'm ready for independence. And they're like, well, you haven't cleaned up your room, so no, I don't think so. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So Germany, the interesting thing about this is who were really the aggressors here, and that's one of the problems. Who actually started the war? Was it Germany? And they got the brunt of a lot of the stuff that was taking place. Really started the war was Serbia, right? They're the one that assassinated the Archduke, and then of course Austria-Hungary, and then Russia, and then Germany. So why is Germany getting blamed for all this? And bottom line is Germany kept going, kept doing a lot more. That they used this as more of a opportunity to increase their lands, their imperialistic goals. And that's one of the reasons why most people feel that Germany had a lot of stuff against them. So bottom line is they could maintain a limited army. They had to pay reparations. This is important because this comes up into things later with the economic issues that happen later. They had to take sole responsibility for World War One and were stripped of its colonies in the Pacific. Of course, when you strip your economic opportunities, then you don't have any money, and that causes a lot of frustration, and the people, high unemployment, a lot of all that kind of stuff. Now, Russia actually lost more territory than anyone else because they were excluded because they left, right? And they stopped the whole Bolshevik Revolution. Treaty ignores the claims of colonies to become independent, and that treaty created the League of Nations, but again, we didn't sign that treaty, all right? So there was a strong opposition to that. Wilson did not compromise with the Republicans. He left leading Republican foreign expert Henry Cabot Lodge, who's buckety buck bigwig, and Republicans are angry, and they don't ratify it. They don't allow the U.S. to join it, and because never approving the Treaty of Versailles, the U.S. actually made its own peace treaty with Germany, and this is going to come back later to us. All right, so the failures are the U.S. did not join the League of Nations, which caused Europe to have instability. The sole responsibility of the war being on Germany. You know what? I don't necessarily know. And then, of course, the destruction of Germany's economy from reparations. All right. So in the late 1918, at the end of the war, a deadly flu virus. This is called the 1918 or 1919 flu pandemic. And this is basically returning soldiers are replacing the workers. They are in smaller groupings. They're coming back from this whole war. They have some illnesses. Inflation sets in, reducing the value of the job, fear of communism, desire for isolation, return to normalcy, led to the rise of a wave called the first Red Scare. We'll come back to the first Red Scare at the second Red Scare with the whole influenza pandemic, and then we've got some videos that you can watch later on. All right, so bottom line is, guys, lots of things going on at this time, lots of craziness, and we think our lives are crazy, and yeah, they are, in all fairness, but they're dealing with the same kind of things there. And if you really do some research on the flu pandemic, you'll discover that there was people wearing masks, people not social distancing when they were supposed to. And I said not wearing masks. They didn't know how to stop it. Now, the strain was horrendous. It was also called the Spanish flu because most people believe it originated from Spain. And so it was a worldwide pandemic, guys. Millions of people died from the pandemic. And a lot of soldiers of the United States, soldiers really died not from the war itself, but from the virus effects and afterwards. So lots of stuff going on. There's a lot of scares about the communism coming in, and all this kind of stuff. And people just said, I just want to return to normal. And the country said, no, you cannot return to normal. What is normal anyway, right? And so that's what we're going to be dealing with as we get into this next unit. Next unit is talking about the roaring 20s and 30s, but really it's really setting us up for some economic upheaval. Germany's is struggling. The issues with the Great Depression happened to Germany too. It's a worldwide depression, and so it just causes us to be in the middle of another war, and we'll talk about that later. All right, guys, have a good one.